Chapter 5, A Danger in the Jungle. There was a little valley between two hills. We were on one hill and the enemy was on the other. Then we got orders to move the machine gun about 50 metres to the left of the big tree that was in the middle of the valley, and find a safe place to put it before the enemy blew us up. We found a place to put the gun and stayed there all night. We could hear shooting all around us, but they didn't hit us. When it was day again, our planes came and they blew up the enemy soldiers. Then we watched while our men moved off the hill and came down into the valley. Suddenly, somebody started shooting at them. We couldn't see the enemy soldiers because the jungle was too thick, but somebody was shooting at our men. The shooting was in front of us, which meant that the enemy soldiers were in between us and our men, and this meant that the enemy was able to come back and find us, so we had to get out fast. We began to move back to the hill, but Doyle suddenly saw more enemy soldiers who were going towards our men. We waited until they got to the top. Then Bones began shooting with the machine gun. He probably killed 10 or 15 enemy soldiers. Doyle and I and the other men, 2 men, threw grenades, but then an enemy soldier shot Bones in the head. I pulled the machine gun from his hands and shouted to Doyle, but there was no answer. 2 of them were dead, and Doyle was only just alive. I picked up Doyle, put him across my shoulders, then I ran towards the hill. There were bullets flying all around me from behind, and then I saw more enemy soldiers in the low grass in front of me. They were shooting at our men on the hill. I ran fast, shouting and screaming as loudly as I could, and suddenly I was in the middle of our soldiers, and everybody was pleased and hitting me on the back. My shouting and screaming frightened the enemy soldiers away. They just ran. The weeks went by slowly. I got a letter from my mum, and I wrote back to her that everything was okay. I also wrote a letter to Jenny Coran and asked Mum to ask her parents to send it on to her, but I didn't get a reply. Bubba and I decided that we would get a shrimp boat when we got home and catch shrimps and make a lot of money. Bubba planned it all. It started to rain one day and it didn't stop for 2 months. We still had to look for enemy soldiers, and one day we found them. We were crossing a rice field when suddenly they started shooting at us. Somebody shouted, "Back!" I picked up my machine gun and ran towards some trees. I looked round for Bubba, but he wasn't there. Then I heard that he was out in the rice field and he was hurt, so I left my gun by the trees and ran back into the field. "Gump, you can't go out there," somebody shouted, but I just ran. Halfway out, I saw another man who was hurt. He was holding a hand up to me, so I picked him up and ran back to the trees with him. Then I ran out again and found Bubba. There was blood all over him and he had 2 bullets in his stomach. He looked up at me and said, "Forrest, why did this happen?" What could I say? Then he said, "Play me a song on the harmonica, will you?" There was still a lot of shooting going on, but I played a song. Then all the colour went out of Bubba's face, and he said something very softly, "Home," and then he died. And that's all I've got to say about that. The rest of the night was terrible, the worst night that I've ever known. Nobody could get any help to us. The enemy soldiers were so near that they could hear them talk. We could hear them talking. Then when it got light, an American plane came and used flamethrowers on the enemy and almost on us. Suddenly the trees were on fire and men were running out of the jungle with burned skin and clothes. During all of this, somebody shot me in the back of the leg, but I can't remember when it happened. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered. Bubba was dead. The shrimp business idea was dead with him. I just wanted to die too. Then our helicopters came and the enemy soldiers who were left ran away. An hour later, I was out of there and on my way to the hospital in Dangyang.